Kamala Harris is ahead in many of the polls ahead of November's US election. It's been another amazing week. Joining me live is Professor of Political Science at Cypress College, Peter Mathews. Peter, a very good morning to you, our time. And
good morning, Tim.
Quite extraordinary. I look at the bookmakers, they have Kamala Harris in at $2 to win the election.
The bookmakers and the pollsters, who have her up by 5 points in the RMG poll. In the Ledger poll, she's up by 7 points when they get rid of the third-party candidate. So anyway you look at it, she's doing great. In 8 polls, she's ahead of President Trump, which is a complete turnaround since President Biden gave up the seat. It is going to be a very interesting race, Tim, to say the least.
Do you think this has got a lot to do with the whole idea that no one wanted to see a Biden-Trump clash? They didn't want to see two older men, and Harris presents something completely different.
Yes, and I was looking at the mechanics of the whole thing. President Trump has held on to his own base. He was always trying to reinforce the base and make sure he holds on to those voters because they're very loyal to him. And that's why he brought in J.D. Vance rather than bring someone else who could actually bring more voters from the middle. He didn't do that. He wanted to shore up his base and felt that President Biden's numbers would keep dropping as they were. Now here comes a new candidate who's shown a amazingly different, a dynamism that many people didn't know that she had, but she has been a very good leader for a long time. But now she's becoming a dynamic, charismatic leader, as well as someone who knows the issues, who's a good debater. And so her numbers have boosted the Democrats up considerably. And that's why she's several points ahead of President Trump in the nationwide polls. But as you know, it's the 7 states or so, the swing states, that are really important in the Electoral College. She could end up getting more popular votes and losing the electoral votes and losing President Trump, former President Trump. So that has to be of concern to them. They have to really work on those swing states.
Of course, and a big part of that assignment will be who is picked as a running mate. How do you see the swing states at the moment?
They're very close. She's tied in several of them, but she's ahead in a couple of them. In fact, she's a few points ahead in states like Michigan. She's actually about 11 points ahead in Michigan. But other states, in Pennsylvania, she's about 3 or 4 points behind former President Trump. And several other states, about 4 or 5 states. Georgia, she's ahead in Georgia by a couple of points. It's still very close, but I would say there's been a big improvement in those swing states since she's come into the candidacy, into the campaign. She's improved the standing of the Democrats in those swing states. Still a little too close to call, but the numbers are going in her direction. And that's one reason that it looks like President Trump and J.D. Vance have both gone after her in an ad hominem attack, about her ethnicity, about her gender, and about other kinds of things. And we'll talk about that if you have any questions regarding that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, it doesn't seem like their strategy is very well planned, because there's been, it's been explained as a dumpster fire, shooting yourself in the foot. Some of the comments by both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Yes, indeed. Can you imagine that Donald Trump attacked her on her birth certificate? Laura Loomer, the right-wing, podcaster, whoever she is, she was putting out the Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris's birth certificate on the internet to try to find out what in quote race she was at birth. Well, the birth certificate at that time when she was born didn't have any kind of race or racial or ethnic indication. And so that was a flat. First of all, it's a ridiculous thing to do. They should be working on talking about issues. And then President Trump, or at least J.D. Vance, talks about childless leaders, childless women particularly. He attacked a few years ago, 2021, Vice President Harris as being, and other leaders like Pete Buttigieg and others in the Democratic Party, as being childless leaders who cannot identify with what America needs. That is a horrendous statement, because whether you have children or not, you're still a committed American who cares about a lot of things about the society and about children, even if they're not your own. You want to have strong schools. You want to have climate change fixed. You want to have good transportation, good investment, good jobs. It doesn't matter whether you have children or not. And yet they've made, J.D. Vance especially, made this an issue, and it's been a big millstone around the neck of both of them. Unfortunately, it's brought them down in terms of numbers, or kept their numbers steady but not growing at all. Those kinds of comments, many middle of the road, suburban voters and Republican voters in suburbs, women included especially, are turning against former President Trump and Vice President candidate Vance because of those comments.
Yeah, and we've watched J.D. Vance try to explain himself, and We use the expression out here, he just dug himself a bigger hole. I'm sure that might be used all around the world. But look, Peter, they are very, very interesting days. There's many other issues that we could have discussed, but we'll talk to you real soon.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tim.